Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to our Star Wars Lads Andor review. We are talking about episode 5 today, The Axe That Forgets. This is back to our traditional format. If you've caught up with our channel or found our channel during the last 2 weeks, I want to thank Sanak for keeping this going while I was out of the country. I'm back now, and we'll be doing our two-person reviews here for the foreseeable future, and then also predictions and speculations on Fridays. Everything's the same, except I'm now back instead of a 2-minute clip at the beginning, like with bad audio quality and stuff like before. But we're back to this format. But before we get started, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to our channel for continued Star Wars content. We do 3 videos a week when these shows are out. So with Andor, we will be giving you our predictions, speculation every Friday for the next episode, as well as our reviews every Wednesday morning, right when the episodes drop. So if you're watching this, check out our predictions, speculations. And if you want to check out our reviews for other episodes, you can do that as well. We're on the march to 1,000 subs. We're getting there closer and closer every day. So every single one of your subscriptions matter. And if you're watching this and haven't subbed, please do so. It really will help us out and help us continue to make great Star Wars content for all of you. And hit that like button so more Star Wars fans can subscribe and find our channel here in the future. So let's dive into Andor episode 5. This was an interesting episode. I think the reaction to this episode will be fascinating, coming out from people who have not enjoyed the pace of this show so far. But what were your thoughts with this latest episode of Andor?
Yeah, I think if I had to choose between like a weakest episode for the series, it's either 2 or 5. It seems like if this show is going to be following these sort of like 3 episode batches, it feels like that's kind of how it's set up for this first year of Andor. It's it's definitely the middle episodes that will be the ones that we'll appreciate once these batches are done. But when we're watching them, especially weekly, they might not necessarily hit or impact us the same. So I would say I'd give this slightly below episode two as like the weakest. And that's not to say I don't enjoy this series. I think it's very crucial for Star Wars to lean on the things that originated it, like Flash Gordon, a lot of the pulpier stuff, the inspirations for all that stuff there, and how it's kind of been churned through the Star Wars machine and mythology over the years. But Star Wars shouldn't rely simply on its mythology. Star Wars needs to try different things, remix its formula, and create new things out of it. And going for literally the guy behind the Bourne trilogy to make this a spy thriller, but also like a political thriller, a lot more family drama than just like, oh my god, my dad's the most evil guy in the universe. Right? That's amazing and fun to see, but it's not normal. And Andor is about like these very normal people, these very downtrodden people. So an episode like this highlights all those things. But if you're watching it and someone's showing you this show for the first time, you're probably gonna be like, I guess, yeah. But I really did appreciate that stuff. A lot more of an emphasis on the Aldani rebels and their motivations, just how they all react to Clem or Andor, obviously. I would say the one thing that well, there are 2 things that disappointed me a little bit in this episode. We didn't really get to see the dinner party that was like so hyped up of what, the Vizier and Sly Moore and all those people rubbing shoulders with Palpatine. I'd love to see just how close Mon Mothma could be with those top ranked Imperials and then still do her thing, right? Force the issue. They're definitely playing it a little slower there. And the replacement was the family drama, which isn't bad. It shows off even more of just how much of a struggle it is in her own personal life that probably maybe motivates her to be more focused on the rebellion more and more and her efforts there. But the second thing that was like disappointing for me is that there are now multiple storylines going on past like the first 3 that we've been following. And when they kind of cut back and forth, they just felt like scenes at times. Especially like the Cyril Karn scenes. Like I think there's like a lot like the Uncle Harlow, like okay, like that's like our hook there. But you don't really progress further than that. You just see a lot of like the mom berating the child he hates his life with her. It's a very frugal existence, but also very harsh and almost like gaslighting. And like that's great if that was like replacing entirely like what Dead Ramiro storyline was. But then she's here too, and she's like, I know there's something there. I gotta crack it. So getting these tidbits wasn't as engrossing as like what it was in the last episode when we first got introduced to all these Coruscant storylines. So I think those were like my biggest issues. But overall, I did really enjoy a lot of the Aldani rebels and like their motives going from something like I don't even remember why I hate like Skeen's character versus the young kid who's like politics. These things can't be trampled. Like look at this object. Look at this object. Like this is what the galaxy is built off of. This is what people like us can do. And it's so very different and stuff like that. And then same things like they're rebels who didn't know the final piece of the puzzle. That was like wow. Like Cassian's like you would literally die trying to figure this out. Like and you're trying to give me crap. Like here I am. I'm gonna help you. I know what to do yada yada yada. So it was cool to see those things. Um, the other stuff is like again vacuum in a vacuum. Those scenes are just like I feel like all the payoff for all these storylines is going to really happen in the next episode. But if you're watching this episode and you love the Aldani Rebels and want to know more about them before their supposed demise in the next episode, this is it. Now you understand a little bit more about them. We'll probably get more in the next episode. But if you're just jumping into this episode expecting like the action after that setup of the last episode, this isn't it.
No, it's not. And I think that's why this one kind of feels more singular than episode 2 with we both praised the show for dropping the first 3 episodes all at once because especially episode 2 was far more small scale and character driven than you would expect for a big tentpole Star Wars show, one that's shot not on the volume and really boasting about its live effects and real sets. And but I think it does stand out more when you have to wait a whole nother week to see what happens. I think for me, this was probably my least favorite episode because this episode felt kind of unnecessary so far, and we can't say that truly until we've seen what the overall arc is. But right now, it doesn't. It felt like all the stuff we talked about in episode 4, all the stuff we did in episode 4, was sufficient enough for these characters to eventually die or have some type of tragic end in the future here, and maybe they do live on and become a major part of the show, but it doesn't seem it's the way this episode is built. It seems like it's trying to get you to care about these characters so much for their eventual demise. I think this is going to be the tightest Star Wars show, the most cohesive Star Wars show by the end of its 2 seasons. And I think all of this stuff will probably be mostly satisfactory and mostly satisfying for the audience that follows it. But it just, as we progress through the story and you see all these different plot lines, it is a little more concerning with these 35 to 40-minute episodes that you're not going to be able to wrap it all up in a way that feels like the idea was given enough time to fully breathe. But I think for me, that was my biggest problem with the episode. But I think this is one that if you do binge it next year before season 2, it's probably going to be one of those episodes that you don't remember exactly what happens in it, but it is a nice connective piece for the future. Uh,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so yeah,
absolutely. And I just want to add, like, yeah, we're we're being a little bit more negative here with this episode in the sense of the structure, some of the payoff, and that's fair. I mean, we're not trying to be like Star Wars fanatics who can't see past our issues, especially in a show that's taking these big risks. Like, yeah, that's wonderful they're taking the risks. That doesn't necessarily mean that the average Star Wars fan is going to enjoy an episode like this. But if there's anything I want to say that's extremely positive, it's the visual iconic looks of it, the cinematography, iconography is just all there. I think what it showcased a lot is the strain of both sides. Like, yeah, even in the Mon Mothma scene, you see everyone's kind of spaced out. Cyril and his mother are on opposite sides. Dead Ramiro's popping pills at work to like stay focused, avoid like a migraine or something. The ending with Luthen, I think, was a pretty nice touch because it really showed that, like, as much as this guy has been a manipulator in control at all times, it's all an act 2 of, like, an act of control, and he's like, "I think I pushed it too far, like, will this Cassian guy really fit in?" And then when we see Cassian, like, accept, like, that he's like, "Yeah, look, I got paid, unlike you people, like, skiing, I'm not." He's telling his own lies, all this and that. There are a lot of strains there. You see these people struggling through, like, drills and grass, and then you see Gorn working undercover and the humanization of, like, these people who are just working, right? Like, it's there's strains of, like, yeah, we kinda hate being out here. Gorn is kinda tied in between of, like, yeah, I understand that you guys can have the day off to a degree. Like, there's all these little strains, and then when we see Mon Mothma, I thought that scene with her in the car was brilliant because when I first saw it, I was like, okay, sure, whatever. But then I realized that when I was going back, when parents like take the expressway to the driver, right? He wants to speed this up. Like this strain is horrendous. Like he already kind of is implying that he knows what she's doing with the rebellion stuff. There's these cool things about the strains on each and every side, different planets. And I think this episode is building up really well. And I mean, like even Cyril, when he was like finally like motivating himself, like, what is my focus? What is my target? It's always Andor again. But we see in the background, like the clone troopers. Like I thought that I found that very surprising because it seems like there's some sort of idealization of clones who are systematic or the same as anyone else, but maybe he saw them as like anybody could be like even if you're just a boring plain person, you can become something. You can bring order. Maybe he was first inspired to be who he is, take those risks, go to other planets. So if there's any real storytelling being told here outside of like the cool casting stuff that's developed, it's the strain that you can tell by the visuals of like everyone is weighed down and it's building, it's growing into what we eventually see in Rogue One. So I'd say that was really the thing that I appreciated just skimming through it once more after the episode ended.
Yeah, and it's the strain that's put on us too as the viewers. And people might not like that idea, but the fact that we do have to keep waiting and waiting and waiting for a lot of things to occur. This whole show is really like a calm before the storm, and we kind of, I think that's the point of sticking in this timeline specifically for the entire first season, while the second season will be accelerated, is we're building to a chaos. And we kind of, you can kind of tell that by the first episode that this show is going to be like that. But I think when we get to probably episode 11, 10, end of 10, 11, 12, and this whole galaxy just seems to explode in an instant, and it's all turned on its head, we get closer to the rebels timeline when we can tie in directly and see just how everything is starting to collapse on itself within the empire, and all the foothold they think they have is slowly just gone. I think that's going to be what makes the show so satisfying, even through the slower periods, because this will be one of those shows that if you go back and binge, you'll like the finale should be so uh, exciting that it will make the rest of the show like so full of tension, so dripping with suspense to when it all goes down, especially used as like a prequel type thing, because we know, eventually what the fate of Cassian is. We know how he gets involved and we know how passionately he gets involved. So to see that transition and to see how Mon Mothma gets to the point where she is in Rebels and how all this stuff comes to a head, I think that increases the anticipation that ultimately the show will provide. So, and I think season 2 will probably be a lot different tone, if I had to guess, with its
Okay,
accelerated timeline.
right. With the blocks and just the fact that we're gonna be introduced to characters that we know are in Rogue One who are going to be consistently staying around. Characters like Cyril, Dedra, Bix, we don't know what their like fate is. Luthen Rail is the biggest character introduced here, and he could be gone in like 3 episodes. That's the most shocking thing. I feel like we're gonna really appreciate that as soon as we get to those block episodes of season 2. But right now, I can understand some of the string, and it's intentional, but that doesn't mean you have to love it.
Yeah. the pockets are fermenting, and I think the audience is fermenting as well with this show. And maybe this show is one of those for you that you need to sit on, and in the end of November when it's all out, binge it, because I think that will probably ultimately be the optimal way to watch this type of show. But yeah, I think as disappointing as it is this week that we didn't get anything too explosive for this episode, it will ultimately make the future better. So that's our thoughts on Andor episode 5. Let us know what you thought down in the comments below. We always respond to your comments, and we want to talk about Andor with you down in the comments. Maybe we didn't think of something that you thought of or got out of this episode. Let us know down below. And if you haven't yet, please hit that like button. It will help us interact with more Star Wars fans out there, and subscribe to our channel on the march to 1000. You'll want to be a part of it so we can continue to give you guys great Star Wars content on this channel. The calendar for our future content for October is going up today, or already has been up today, so check that out for all the things that are coming with Star Wars Lads. We will have predictions and speculation on Friday, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.